On October 12, 1985, a man walked into a Yamaha dealership in Long Beach, California to buy this RZ350 specifically to race. Supposedly, this came from Laguna Seca. I don't know for sure where this road rash happened, but I do know, based on the paperwork that came with the bike, that includes the dealership finance paperwork and receipts for all the racing modifications to support the racing history. In addition to the documents, the bike also came with several manuals and this box full of parts that looked like it was enough to put the bike back together, but I wasn't able to find a pair of working rear sets among all of these parts. And despite all these ignition components, I wasn't getting spark. The aftermarket for RZs isn't what it used to be, but thankfully I was able to find modern replacements for both on eBay. As it turns out, there's a good reason I wasn't getting spark. I talked to the previous owner and he was having the same issue, and he pointed me towards this forum where it discusses matching this CDI and the stator, which kind of makes sense and explains why I have multiple of each in the box. So I'm going to dig back into this at some point and see if I can get it to spark with the original ignition installed. The first thing I installed was the Powerdynamo ignition system. It was actually really quick and easy to install, but it came with a major drawback. There was no engine RPM signal. Why would I need that when I have this beautiful tack? Well, I asked myself the same question because before I bought this bike, I didn't know anything about RZ350s. And I especially didn't know anything about YPVS. The YPVS, or Yamaha Power Valve System, is an exhaust valve system that adjusts exhaust port timing to broaden the power band, giving strong low-end torque without sacrificing high RPM performance. Since the Powerdynamo system is also for the RD350, which doesn't have the YPVS, the tachometer module is sold separately. It's pretty important, but I couldn't wait to see if the engine would run because I'm pretty sure it has 0 hours on a fresh rebuild, which might be a few decades old, but I just wanted to see if it would fire. With the module on order, I put some gas in the carbs and... pro tip. Don't try to start a motorcycle with no brakes and without testing the clutch first. Turns out this one needs some adjustment. You may have also noticed that I had to roll start it. Further evidence that this is a race bike. Normally the Kickstarter would go there, but it's been deleted. So the only way to start this bike is through roll starting. I guess unless you have one of those fancy doohickeys that do that. Anyway, in addition to the tack module being sold separately, so is a regulator that can safely charge lithium batteries, which is something I should have considered before buying a lithium battery specific bracket to mount it and a separate charger to charge it outside of the system. Thankfully, I was able to return the battery and charger, and I found a 12-volt lead acid battery from Home Depot of all places, and as a bonus, it's even smaller than the anti-gravity battery. I have the camera at a very specific angle right now, but some of you may have noticed there is a headlight and a turn signal poking out, and that's due to an unexpected side quest that I had to complete in order to obtain a title. The state of Washington requires a VIN inspection and a 3-year waiting period to obtain a title while ownership is in doubt. Annoyingly, the VIN inspection also requires the vehicle be in roadworthy condition, which is something I didn't know until 2 days before the inspection. Overnight delivery saved the day, but these cheap add-ons don't fit this vintage racer. I can't complain too much because I passed the inspection and technically I can now ride this on the street. I didn't initially intend to make this bike street legal, but now that it's here, I want to keep it street legal. Problem is, I also don't want to lose it as a race bike, so I've got a few ideas to keep it street legal and maintain a lightweight vintage racer. I'm thinking something like maybe finding a smaller taillight assembly from a period correct enduro bike, maybe a smaller headlight. I don't have the upper fairing. It looks like it came with a number plate, but I'm not sure that fits what I'm going for either, so I still don't know exactly what I'm going to do here, but if you have any ideas, leave me a comment. Maybe I'll use your idea. Maybe I like all these vintage stickers, or maybe it was the sticker shock of the cost of used parts, but I wanted to preserve all the bodywork I could. The plastics were simple. I just gave them a quick wash in degreaser and then a light scrub with some Comet. For the gas tank, I had to soak that in concentrated vinegar for many hours, and then after all the soaking in vinegar, I ended up with some pinholes. And I have never used silver solder before, so this was my first attempt, but it seems to have sealed completely. But anyway, I went ahead and cleared the rest of it as well, including, you can still see the ghost of the Mikuni stickers, but I took that side off because it was falling off. This side looked pretty well adhered, so I'm gonna leave it. Everything with the brakes is new. I cleaned up all the calipers as best I could and painted them. Same thing on the back brakes, and both the rear and front master cylinders were replaced. As I mentioned, everything I installed to make it street legal, the headlight, turn signals, those brackets, the license plate mount, tail brake, and then the other turn signals, that was all temporary. Intended to be temporary, but it's gonna stay there until I find something better. There's the tack module. The regulator actually just fits in, I forget what was mounted here before. And then I didn't want to cut the frame at all, so I just took this piece of 1-inch thick aluminum so that I could mount the coil and that tack module. All the wiring harness that I cared about for the race bike was wire loomed. This rainbow mess was thrown together just to do the inspection. I will clean that up, but it's a totally separate module where I have a splitter that is on the street legal harness only, and then normally the battery on this end would plug directly into the regulator, power and ground. And you can see, so the street legal harness just taps into that. I think this is for security systems or something, but it's a 12-volt lead acid battery. And typically when I'm using this as a race bike, the only thing that needs power is the YPVS motor, which is, I don't know, tucked somewhere up in there. And then with the street legal system, LEDs draw so little power that I was able to operate all the lights on that tiny battery. Yeah, works just fine. And it's way lighter than anything else you're gonna find, and smaller. Hopefully very soon you'll see me taking this thing for a spin up and down my street. Until then, thanks for watching.